But Team USA lost again today, and I'm curious, is it like a thing where college coaches are starting to look internationally for more and more players since it seems like the rest of the world is catching up?
That's a great question. I talk about that with our players a lot as far as their aspirations to play professionally, NBA, wherever, and understanding, you're not just competing against the best players in America. You're competing with countries all over the world that love basketball, are fascinated by it, and are playing it in growing numbers. So, for sure, I think if you look at the percentages in the NBA over the last 2 decades, the percentages of professional players internationally coming into the NBA are growing. And it's fun. It makes the game more fun, just kind of makes it more diverse, brings different people, different cultures, different aspects into the game of basketball, and in the end, obviously makes it better. So we're open to it, obviously. We've added some international players, and hopefully we'll continue to do so. And I think, obviously, American players, I think, have known really for a while how good the game is getting in the rest of the world.
Are you anticipating adding any more? The schedule's complete, right? Even though you haven't released it, this is it. Right?
It's going out today. Yes, it's done. It's kind of been close to done, and the Mountain West, I believe, released it yesterday with their final shifts, and I think we were just waiting on those final shifts just so when we sent something out, we weren't changing something later, just so there wasn't any confusion maybe on behalf of some of the fans looking at it. So when that came out, it was right around when we were wrapping it up, and that was just time to put it out.
How much do you like it?
I mean, as I said earlier, I think from a competitive standpoint, it's terrific. The opportunities it's presented itself for us is great for this team. And then to get this amount of home games as kind of a thank you to our fans, I'm excited about as well.
You wrestled with this last year, Coach, but how difficult was it to put this slate together?
You're balancing a lot of things, particularly when you're the coach of the Lobos. You have an amazing fan base, and thinking about them is just as important sometimes as thinking about just your own team and what's best for it. So balancing that as a juggling act, it's something I'm learning as I kind of go along here, but I do feel as though each year I've kind of learned more and more about both sides of that, what this team actually needs, and then also what's in the best interest of our fans, because we do want to make sure that we give them every opportunity we can to continue to support this team.
You said this schedule was a little bit more challenging. How do you approach your schedule every year? Do you look at it differently based on the season before, or how does it go?
I think for us going into this year, we expect our team to be very competitive. So I think we looked at it that way. I think we went into it saying we want to have as competitive a schedule as we possibly can, because we have a team that can probably withstand that. And that can fluctuate a little bit from year to year based on how you feel about your team and where it's going. But I feel really good about this year's team, and I feel really good about next year's team. So I think right now the mode that we're in is putting together the most challenging schedule we can that also considers our fans and giving them, home game opportunities to enjoy this team.
Staying on the schedule topic, first off, the Eastern game, does that mean there's no New Mexico Classic?
The New Mexico Classic is, gosh, I knew this question was going to come. I'll give you a better answer at a later date. There's been some scheduling issues with football having a game that weekend. Administration ultimately makes those decisions, and I think we're still kind of working out the final details of that. But at the moment, there is no New Mexico Classic.
Related to that same topic, Highlands hasn't been on the UNM Lobo schedule for a while. Neil, Craig took him off and wouldn't play him.
Yeah.
You now have the former AD here. Are you going to get New Mexico Highlands back in the mix of getting to play the Lobos?
Yeah, no, I mean, they're not purposely not on the schedule. Eastern was on the schedule. I talked to Mike over at Highlands and kind of went through, and the plan will be to have them on the schedule for sure in the coming years. We can't take care of everybody, unfortunately, but just based on our relationship and how things have gone with Eastern New Mexico, they were up, and hopefully next year it could be Highlands' turn, but I can't always guarantee those things.
Coach, now that the last couple of years, Cherry Silver has been kind of like, we might do it, we might not.
Yeah.
Now that you know you're going to do it,
Yeah.
anything special coming with that? And you guys plan on? Is
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. It's something we talk a lot about internally. You know, it was called the Howl, you know, and I think when I first got here, there was some conversation from administration at the time that maybe it had run its course financially, attendance-wise, and maybe transition it into something else. That first year, we kind of played a game on campus. Last year, we moved that game to the arena. Obviously, it had a really good turnout and much different than the year prior. So we're going to kind of continue with that theme. It's you know, from a marketing perspective, there's obviously a lot of things we want to do with the program, and not just me, but people around the department, how to market the Lobo basketball team going into the season. But also as a basketball coach, I want to make sure we're doing things that are preparing us for the season. And to me, the cherry and silver game is just a really good blend of that. You know, the Howl in its existence was very entertainment oriented, which was great. The cherry and silver game is more game oriented, which I think can be a little bit more beneficial to the competitiveness of our team, and hopefully a good blend of both worlds. Where that goes as we journey on here together over the years, I don't know, but I think moving that game from Johnson to the Pit last year was a nice boost. We'll do it again this year. We'll see how it goes, and then we'll just kind of keep evolving as it unfolds.
The Legends Classic has, right after that, you have the UTEP game in New Mexico State, and then you go to Brooklyn. Is that just one long road trip? Do you stay out the entire time, or what's the logistics?
I don't think so. We're still working on our travel to Brooklyn. It's a little complicated getting out there, so I don't know how that's all going to exactly look. You know, the UTEP New Mexico State thing, quite honestly, I stole from Mike. You know, he's always likes to kind of knock those two games out in the same trip. Financial advantages, fatigue advantages, to an extent. So we kind of copied that. We'll see how that goes. And then we'll kind of treat Brooklyn as it unfolds with regards to the finances and the travel opportunities for us to get out there.
You have trouble getting big name schools in, obviously, and I'm curious if you have had any talks with Eddie or anybody about kind of combo scheduling like New Mexico State did. They got $600,000 to play Washington State in football, but part of their contract was also home and home with the Pac-12 school.
Sure.
Have you had any conversations about maybe combining with football to get a home and home to get a Pac-12 school or a Big 12 school into the Pit, because they're not coming anymore?
For sure, yeah. We've definitely had those conversations, but obviously nothing's come to fruition yet. We continue to kind of chop the wood on those kinds of opportunities as often as we possibly can. And the example you referenced is a good one, but it's not something obviously we've been able to do as of yet. But yeah, we have conversations about those.
And you are open to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all are. Yeah.
That road trip you take, Coach, to UTEP and New Mexico State, does that adequately prepare you for when the conference season rolls around just a couple of weeks later?
Maybe. I think, like I said, I'm kind of stealing it from Mike as far as having both those games on the schedule and just knocking it out in one trip. It's a great opportunity to go and play two really good opponents on the road and kind of some rivalry environments regionally. And we're excited about it. I think it'll be a really cool opportunity to play two good teams kind of back to back on the road, and should be a good chance for our team to kind of come together as well.
Does it prepare you to go to Wyoming?
I guess we'll find out when we go to Wyoming. I hope so.
Coach, just out of curiosity, Jeff made me think about it. We just asked you, with Eddie, with his LSU ties, you guys ever thought about maybe getting him on the schedule or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think I don't know the particulars of the New Mexico State-Washington State deal. At the end of the day, it has to make sense for both sides, you know. So we can all have a lot of like personal relationships and things, but a lot of these really do come down to business decisions. And if we can find a way to make a good business decision for UNM that also fits another school, we're all about it. But it has to fit that school too. We'd love to do a lot of them, but that doesn't mean the other schools are going to want to sign on as well.
The second thing is that I see Grand Canyon on there. You feel like they're one of those up and coming programs because you know they get all that fan support
Yeah.
and stuff like that. This could probably really turn into something.
It's a great program, and I think, you know, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but you're talking top 150 and up over the last few years. Regionally, it makes a lot of sense. They're growing. I've coached there before. It's a tremendous environment. It's a cool opportunity to start a series. We did it before Marvin went over there, but there's just a lot of kind of ties, I think, regionally that we have to continue to try and tap into. I'm really excited we continue to have UTEP on the schedule. Hopefully that will keep going when that contract expires. Obviously, New Mexico State's kind of written in. If we can build something with Grand Canyon and any of these other regional schools are ever willing to do something like this, I mean, we'll sign tomorrow. So I think those are things we just want to kind of continue to build for our fans.
The first 4 games are here at home, and the next 2 are pretty close. So you're probably going to have a lot of Lobo fans. How do you think that's going to help the team to kind of, get into the season while also having more of a home court advantage kind of feel?
Yeah, I really didn't think that far ahead. I've always liked doing scrimmages, and part of the balance, like I talked about earlier, of being the coach of the Lobos is scrimmages don't really appeal to a fantastic fan base. So trying to give them opportunities to see us and thank them for all their support, but then trying to make our team the best it can possibly be. And like I said, one of the scrimmage opponents we have is the best team we'll probably face all year. So that to me selfishly is going to prepare us for the season. So that's why the cherry and silver game, that's why bumping it up to 18 home games, those other things hopefully satisfy fans while we're at the same time able to kind of build our team through October as we get ready for the year. And then those games that you mentioned hopefully are just kind of icing on the cake. But to me, the nuts and bolts of it will come from those mid to late October games and practices.
Big shock when they face Auburn in New York.
I hope not. I hope not.
Speaking of those scrimmages, can you tell me where those games would be?
I texted Eric Schultz because Jeff or somebody asked me I don't know who it was, and he basically said I'm not really allowed to say. So I think after the fact we can talk about it. I'm sure eventually you'll read about it. There's all kinds of people that eventually get the information and put it out there. But as far as me, officially discussing it, this is not something I can do.
Playing Auburn tells you that this team must be actually really good, like
They
top
are,
10
yeah.
type team.
It's a very interesting opponent. I'll leave it at that. It's a very interesting opponent.
Is there any leeway down the road for this scrimmage to lead toward anything else?
I don't know. That's not something we went into it thinking about. That'd be, again, like I just mentioned earlier, a lot of these teams you discuss, it's not our choice, it's their choice. I'd love to play every single one of them. It's just going to come down to which of those schools thinks it's in their, not best interest, but in their interest to play the game.
Coach, how many of these are home and home?
Gosh. Grand Canyon's home and home. UTEP's obviously home and home. Northridge is returning a home and home. And that, I believe, should be it. Yes. Yep.
Anybody else on schedule stuff? All right. Focusing on the players now. I don't know exactly what you guys are able to do practice-wise, but you have a full allotment grade-wise, health-wise right now?
We do.
The recent story of Corey and his involvement with UNMPD wasn't cited for anything, obviously wasn't charged for anything, but he did show up in a police report, and it was reported that he lied about his identity to UNMPD. I'm curious if there's any comment you can make about any potential fallout from that in terms of possible suspension or discipline.
Sure. Quite honestly, that is something that I'm going to keep in-house, but at the same time, indirectly, you'll figure it out at some point. I'll leave it at that. But I'm not here to kind of continue to make something of it. I'll be honest, I think there's a lot of layers to that story that I'm a little disappointed weren't maybe discussed in the 2 different media reports about it. But independent of that, there was still something that resulted in consequences, and those consequences are in action and will continue to be. And like I said, I think some of those eventually will be known.
Coach, has there been a determination on Hendricks whether he starts at the beginning of the year?
There has not. There has not. We are still working on that. I think the NCAA and immediate eligibility waivers is a pretty moving target right now in a lot of ways. And where that leaves us, I don't know. I think we're like Carlton, hoping for the best, expecting the worst.
Mason had the Breakfast Club going on. What are some of the other things that the team is doing to kind of get together and get to know each other a little bit more?
That's a really good question. We're doing a lot of things, and we did throughout the summer and the fall. I think based on a pretty serious injury last year, I've spent a lot of time just trying to know more about the body and keeping it healthy and making sure we're doing everything we can to keep these guys in the best physical condition they can. So we did a lot of other kind of like different sports this summer. We did baseball, we did football. I'm forgetting what else we did, but we did some different sports and kind of some cross training, and we've tried to kind of sprinkle that into our fall as well, just doing different types of activities to train different parts of the body, hopefully to make them a little bit more robust, and prevent maybe injuries that might kind of impact our season. So I think that in and of itself has been a little bit different. Our practices there are some just different parts to it. I've tried to bring in some different people. We had Hugh Greenwood come and speak to the team last week before practice. We have Hunter Green coming to speak to the team today before practice. Just trying to give them different perspectives besides my own, where we can just kind of keep chipping away at these guys and making them the best human beings they can be and eventually the best basketball players they can be.
What you've seen to this point, I realize you haven't got into practice or that kind of time. Does this team more suit you as far as style of play, temperament, experience?
Yeah. You know, I think their personalities for sure. We have a personality profile that we've kind of gone through, and we have kind of a coach come in and spend some time with us and do disc assessments and all kinds of other things of our program staff, players, etc. And, I think it was late last week, he left, or before he left, we kind of went through the roster. And at the end, I was like, man, that's my kind of team, just based on their personalities. And I think that mirrors a little bit more. Right now, basketball-wise, it's terrific because we're all spread out on two teams. So there's enough balls to go around, there's enough shots to go around, there's enough egos to go around. I think the challenge that we're going to face, and we talk about it quite a bit, is when that goes from two teams of 5-on-5 every day to one team of 5 and one ball to share, and guys on the bench and things like that. And that's going to be something that, particularly on the offensive end, we've got to do a very good job of managing and making sure that even if there do happen to be some shortcomings or some times in the game where it's not flowing, it's not going to affect our toughness, our defense, our willingness to compete. And that's really where I hope we'll find a good edge and let the offensive stuff kind of just be some icing on the cake for us.
What is the energy like on this team, like as you head towards the season actually started, a lot of people have been waiting
Yeah.
in anticipation of the build. What is the energy like? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think every coach is going to tell you it's great, but quite honestly, our chemistry from like late summer through early fall has been the best since I've been here, as far as the most amount of guys kind of connected together. I think at times we've had groups of guys connected and other guys maybe trying to come along. Even in my first year here, when we had a really good year, there were some guys really well ahead of just leading and guiding the thing, the Joe Firstingers, et cetera. And then you had a couple of guys that we were just, grooming and trying to bring along. I think you saw a little bit of that last year as well. And I think this year so far, I was with our strength coach this morning just going through our conditioning numbers, and it's like, man, this is the best top to bottom we've ever had. We usually have our 2, 3, 4 guys at the bottom that we're getting nervous about, and he's like, Coach, this is the best it's ever been. And I think just their overall connectedness with each other. I was out for dinner with the seniors a couple weeks ago and just asking them how it is, and it's like, man, they're just like, it's so much better. The freshmen are talking to the seniors. This person's talking to that person, and that maybe hadn't happened as much in the past. There were divisions is a strong word, but just guys kind of, went their own ways to an extent. I think this is probably the most connected that it's been. So that's exciting. We just have to keep it that way. And our challenge is going to be keeping it that way, like I said, when there's only one group of 5 out there, not 2.
But if you're pitching on what the state of California is doing, there's only a government signature to...
I'm going to end up on what was the last article? I have a lot of thoughts on it, and I ended up on a what is it called? That's one of those articles last time I spoke about something. But look, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Players, to me, should be compensated. I'm probably supportive of it, like a lot of people. I realize the NCAA stance. I've seen what they've had to say about it, but I think there's a lot of people clinging to this old nostalgic notion of college sports that is evaporating before our eyes, and I think we at least need to acknowledge those conversations, have those conversations wherever they happen to lead. I don't know. I'm not sitting here saying what that means players should get or not get, but I do think those are open and honest conversations we all need to be having. And quite frankly, California is doing it like these should be happening state by state. Whether it's gambling, there are a myriad of topics that are where millions of dollars are at stake that I think behoove all of us to get some really bright people in a room to discuss major topics that involved predominantly low-income background athletes participating in sports dominated by white men. And again, I can go on and on and on. That's part of the reason I'm doing the women's walkthrough. Socially just conversations I could have all day long, and hopefully at some point that'll work its way, into our community as well.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.